Chapter 523. Over the next few days, things developed as Immortal expected. Those super-evolved corpse generals no longer came to cause trouble for him. Instead, they all went into hiding. At least on the surface, Immortal could no longer detect any super-evolved corpse generals. Since he couldn't find any super-evolved corpse generals, he could only go kill those corpse generals. At the same time, in a huge cave at the foot of the mountain, the corpse head was sitting on a high stone platform. Below him, there were more than 50 tribal leaders. Compared to the tens of thousands of tribal leaders a few days ago, the current situation could only be described as bleak. The tribal leaders had gloomy expressions. The corpse generals below didn't dare to say anything. After a long while, the corpse head spoke. "Do any of you have any ideas?" The 50 tribal leaders remained silent. The corpse head snorted. "Normally, you all act like a tyrant in your own tribes, but now that there's an enemy invading, you're all out of ideas. What kind of fucking tribal leader are you?" The tribal leaders all secretly complained in their hearts. "Normally, you act like a tyrant in front of us, but now that there's an enemy invading, you're also out of ideas? Then what's the use of having a corpse like you?" Of course, these were only the tribal leaders' thoughts. They naturally couldn't express it on the surface. The corpse head looked at the tribal leaders. They all looked at each other. This made him even angrier. If you still can't think of a solution, then don't be a tribal leader. When the corpse generals heard this, their expressions all changed. What did it mean if a corpse general leader was removed from his position midway? It meant that the tribal leaders might very well send them to Thousand Poisons Ridge. That was equivalent to giving them a death sentence. The corpse general leaders all looked at each other. They all saw the fear in each other's eyes. At this moment, a corpse general leader suddenly had an idea and said, "Corpse head, I have an idea." The other tribal leaders all looked over, their eyes filled with hope. The corpse head also looked at the tribal leader. "What? Speak." The tribal leader replied, "We can lure that guy to Thousand Poisons Ridge. Let the corpse general beasts of Thousand Poisons Ridge deal with him." When the tribal leaders heard this, they were all overjoyed. How could they have forgotten about this? In the eyes of the corpse general beasts, Thousand Poisons Ridge was a forbidden area. Since ancient times, the corpse general beasts were not allowed to enter as they pleased. Therefore, they couldn't react in time. When they heard the leader's words, they all came to a realization. The corpse's eyes lit up. The 10,000 Poisons Ridge not only had tens of thousands of poison general corpse beasts, but many of them were also in groups. The small ones were a group of 1 or 200, while the large ones were tens of millions. Any super-evolved general corpse, no matter how powerful it was, would basically die if it went to the Thousand Poisons Ridge. Even someone as strong as corpse did not dare to casually go there. The corpse nodded in agreement. "Very well, then we'll lure him to the Myriad Poisons Ridge." The group of leaders responded one after another. The corpse reminded him again. "Remember, do not reveal our plan to anyone. Just arrange for these corpse generals to arrive at the designated location." The corpse generals nodded their heads once more. In the following days, Immortal continued to slaughter these corpse generals in the forest. However, although there were many corpse general beasts, not many of them had reached super evolution. Therefore, his kill points increased at a slower rate. He was wondering if he should look for super-evolved general corpses in other places. From the memories of a few super-evolved general corpses, he knew that this world actually had cities. East, South, West, and North. Each of these cities had over 100 general corpses. A few of these cities had a population of over 100,000. Most of them had a population of over 1 million. If he went to these cities, he would definitely be able to obtain quite a bit of kill points. But at the same time, Immortal also knew that the more populated a city was, the more experts there would be. Furthermore, he already knew that super-evolved general corpses were not the strongest experts in this world. Above level 10 super-evolved general corpses were ancestral corpses. Those were existences that surpassed the Grand Desolate Master Realm. With Immortal's current strength, it would probably be quite difficult for him to deal with ancestral corpses. Moreover, after his sea dragon clone evolved into a level 10 strong mutant wild beast, its level never increased again. Even though Emoshir's level was constantly increasing, it was still a level 10 desolate beast. This was probably due to the limitations of the Dragon Pearl shards. It only had 2 Dragon Pearl shards now and was unable to form a complete Dragon Pearl, so it could not evolve any further. It was unknown when it would be lucky enough to obtain a 3rd Dragon Pearl shard. Perhaps when that time came, the Sea Dragon clone's strength would receive a qualitative increase. On this day, Emoshir continued to farm monsters in the forest. He inadvertently detected that there were more than 50 super-evolved general corpses more than 100 kilometers away. This surprised Emoshir. These super-evolved general corpses had been hiding for the past few days. Why did they suddenly appear? He plundered the memories of a few of the super-evolved general corpses. He discovered that these super-evolved general corpses had all received orders from their tribe leaders to gather here. Emoshir found it strange. These tribe leaders only said that they wanted these super-evolved general corpses to gather here, but they did not say what they were here for. It seemed like there was some kind of conspiracy. However, no matter what conspiracy they had, he would kill them first. Thinking of this, Emoshir teleported and arrived above these general corpses. The dragon-slaying saber slashed downward. Without a sound, these 50 super-evolved general corpses were slaughtered. More than 5 billion kill points appeared in Emoshir's mind. After killing these super-evolved general corpses, Emoshir continued to slaughter the surrounding general corpses. More than an hour later, more than 50 super-evolved general corpses appeared. Just like before, Emoshir slaughtered them all. More than an hour later, more than 50 super-evolved general corpses appeared. After the 5th wave of general corpses appeared, Emoshir could already tell. These general corpses were all pointing to the southeast. It was obvious that they were trying to lure him there. Logically speaking, since they wanted to lure him there, he should naturally go in the opposite direction. However, Emoshir did not do that. He followed them and saw what they were up to. Even if there were stronger experts there, or if there was some danger waiting for him, Emoshir could escape into the miniature world and easily resolve the danger. Therefore, Emoshir followed them and there were 50 waves of super-evolved general corpses. More than 50 waves of super-evolved general corpses meant that there were more than 2,500 of them. Emoshir was a little surprised. In order to lure him here, these general corpses had really put in a lot of effort. They directly used more than 2,500 super-evolved general corpses as bait. After killing 2 more waves of super-evolved general corpses, Emoshir looked at a mountain. The mountain was about 5 kilometers tall. The mountain was densely wooded. Halfway up the mountain, smoke lingered. It looked like a fairyland. Chapter 524. Emoshir was led to a mountain by the corpses. The mountain was about 5 kilometers tall. Halfway up the mountain, clouds and mist lingered, making it look like a fairyland. From the clouds and mist, there was a waterfall that fell all the way to the foot of the mountain. If it was on Earth, this place would look like the residence of an immortal. But at this moment, when Emoshir probed out, he found that there were tens of thousands of corpse beasts on this mountain. Among these corpse beasts, the weakest ones were level 1 super-evolved corpse beasts. They were far from what ordinary corpse beasts in the forest could compare to. Moreover, these corpse beasts did not move alone, but in groups. The small groups had hundreds of them. The big ones had thousands, or even tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. When Emoshir saw this, he finally understood what these corpse beasts were up to. It turned out that they wanted to lure him here and let these corpse beasts deal with him. To be honest, these corpse beasts were indeed very strong. The most terrifying thing was that there were too many of them. Even those corpse general tribes would have to flee in front of these super-evolved corpse general beasts. But to Emoshir, this was killing points. When he investigated the situation here, he was so excited that his eyes shone brightly. He really should thank these corpse generals. Without them, he probably wouldn't have been able to find such a place. In order to thank these corpse generals, Emoshir killed the last wave of super-evolved corpse generals. Then, with a teleport, he arrived halfway up the mountain. Here, there was a group of more than 500 corpse beasts. All of them had pointy mouths and monkey cheeks. They looked like monkeys. However, it was much bigger than a monkey. They were more than 50 meters tall. They were chasing and playing among the giant trees. When they noticed a human figure in the air, they immediately cried out excitedly, "Squeak, squeak, squeak." They called their friends and surrounded Immortal. They gathered below Immortal and screamed excitedly. It could be seen that their eyes were blood red. Their claws were also blood red. They must have seen a lot of blood on a daily basis. Immortal waited for the group of more than 500 corpse beasts to gather at his feet, and continued to jump into the air, trying to catch him. In his right hand, the dragon Salyer appeared. Then, the dragon-slaying saber in his hand slashed down at the over 500 half-zombie beasts below. Silently, a huge ravine more than 500 meters wide and 2 kilometers long appeared in the forest below. More than 500 corpse beast commanders were reduced to a bloody pulp in the ravine. As for his kill points, it had increased by more than 50 billion. Awesome! This was much better than killing those zombie beasts in the ordinary forest below. After killing these corpse general beasts, another 1,000 or so corpse general beasts surrounded them. These were some flying corpse generals. They looked a little like flamingos. However, the difference between them and the flamingos was that their entire bodies were blood red. Their claws and beaks were sharper than the flamingos. They surrounded Immortal, who was in the air. Immortal already knew that these super-evolved beasts were poisonous. Even the air in this mountain was highly toxic. Even a level 10 super-evolved corpse would not be able to live for more than half an hour after entering this mountain. However, Immortal's body was impervious to poison, so the air here did not affect him at all. This time, because these flying corpse beasts were slightly scattered, Immortal used 3 slashes in a row to kill them all. A notification came from his mind. He had obtained more than 100 billion kill points. If this continued, 100 trillion kill points would not be a problem at all. After killing for 2 days, this hillside was already filled with huge ravines. Every huge ravine city was covered in blood-red soil. Immortal looked at the kill points in his mind. 983,988 billion. He was less than 2 trillion away from leveling up again. However, at this time, the energy in his body had been mostly consumed. Thus, he returned to the miniature world. With a thought, the energy in his body quickly filled up. Once again, he returned to reality and continued to fight. An instant of charging was enough for him to slash out more than 50 times. As the saying goes, charging for 5 minutes, talking for 2 hours. Next, after destroying 3 more groups of corpse beasts, a notification came from his mind. Frowny face, the kill points have reached the promotion standard. Do you want to promote now? Immortal was overjoyed. With a thought, he returned to the miniature world. In his mind, he said, "Promote. This promotion will take 5 minutes." With a thought, Immortal fast-forwarded the time. 5 minutes were completed in an instant. Another notification came from his mind. Frowny face, promotion successful. Name, Immortal. Level 5 Evolved Dragon, Level 5 Great Desolate Master, Level 10 Long Xianxia. Ability, click to expand. Immortal stretched out his right hand and clenched it into a fist. He stretched it out again and clenched it into a fist again. He felt the surging energy in his body. Immortal was secretly happy. He had finally reached the 5th step. Level 5 Evolved Dragon. He estimated that with his current strength, combined with the dragon Salyer, he could almost beat up a level 10 evolved dragon. In his mind, a system notification came again. Frowny face, level 5 evolved dragon, miniature world can be upgraded. Do you want to level up now? Immortal nodded. Level up. This upgrade will take 72 hours. During the upgrade, it will be locked. The host will no longer be able to control anything in the miniature world, nor will he be able to enter or exit the miniature world. Hearing this notification, Immortal was not dissatisfied at all. Instead, he nodded in satisfaction. He had killed so many corpse beasts in a row. Although his body could instantly recover in the miniature world, his mental fatigue could also be recovered. But mentally, he couldn't help but feel a little tired. He even felt a little annoyed. Think about it. If you had to do the same thing for more than 10 days, dozens of days, or even hundreds of days, would you feel annoyed? Therefore, he could use these 72 hours to rest well. Emma was surprised to see that Immortal had not left. It had been a long time. Immortal had basically returned to the miniature world and left in an instant. Sometimes, before she could even react, he had already left again. This time he stopped. She asked, "Brother Emo, will you be staying for a while this time?" Immortal nodded, "Yes." Emma was overjoyed and quickly said, "Then I'll go prepare some food for you." Immortal nodded again. At the same time, Happy heard the voice and walked out of the room not far away. When she heard that Immortal would be staying for a while this time, her face was full of smiles. Her eyes, which seemed to be able to speak, also curved into 2 crescent moons. Immortal immediately felt that spring had arrived. Flowers were blooming, birds were singing, and flowers were fragrant. Just looking at her smile was a kind of enjoyment. Chapter 525. Immortal stayed in the miniature world for 3 days. During these 3 days, Happy and Emma cooked different dishes for Immortal every day. Previously, when he was in the miniature world, he could eat whatever he wanted with just a thought, and a table would appear in front of him. However, Immortal still felt that something was missing from the dishes that had been transformed into this way. Now, the food made by the 2 of them made him feel the same as when he was eating in the past. It was rare for Immortal to enjoy such leisure time. The 4 of them chatted and laughed while eating. During these 3 days, Immortal watched the moon rise and the sunset with Happy every day. The days passed comfortably. Finally, 3 days later, Immortal was taking a noon nap. A system notification sounded in his mind. Upgrade complete. Immortal opened his eyes. He looked around. There didn't seem to be any changes around him. However, when he closed his eyes and sensed carefully, he found a shocking change. In the past, the miniature world was just a large piece of land. Outside of this land, everything was in chaos. Now, after the miniature world was upgraded, it had become a planet. The size of the planet was about the same as Earth in the past. Immortal was very surprised. The miniature world had become Earth? The area had expanded too much. However, on this planet, other than the large area that Immortal had modified, the rest was barren. Immortal began to modify this planet in his surprise. Immortal's modification was actually very simple. Yangtze River, Great Wall. Yellow Mountain, Yellow River. Pacific Ocean, Antarctica. Mount Everest, Amazon jungle. In short, he copied everything on Earth here. At the same time, he added many magnificent sceneries of the flaming land. For example, the sunrise of East Pole Island and the aurora of North Pole Island. His modification was very fast, almost completed in just a few seconds. The moment the modification was completed, a gust of fresh air rushed to his face. This Earth was not as bad as the Earth where Immortal lived before. It was also not like the Earth after transmigration where there were zombies everywhere. This was a virgin land that had not been developed yet. In the future, this would be my world. Immortal thought to himself. Moreover, this place couldn't be called a miniature space anymore. Immortal thought for a moment. He was too lazy to think of an awesome name, so he decided to call it Earth Space. Everything in this Earth space was under Immortal's control. If he wanted the mountains to collapse, the mountains would collapse. If he wanted the Earth to crack, the Earth would crack. If he was happy, he could make the Yangtze and Yellow rivers flow all over the planet. The Great Wall could encircle the Earth twice. With just a thought, Happy, Emma, and Emma's son flew into the air. The 4 of them began to travel around the world. Emma and Happy looked at the scenery of Earth that they were once familiar with, and their eyes brimmed with tears of excitement. He took them around the Earth space. After they had seen all the sights on Earth, Immortal let them return to their original positions. After that, Immortal bid farewell to the 3 of them and left Earth. He returned to the Thousand Poisons Ridge. Using his draconic senses, he quickly found a group of super-evolved zombie beasts. After that, he teleported to the mountain stream where the super-evolved zombie beasts were. With one slash, more than 800 super-evolved zombie beasts were turned into a bloody pulp. In his mind, there were more than 80 billion kill points. Now that he had become a 5th-rank evolved dragon, if he wanted to level up, he would need 1,000 trillion kill points. However, there were many super-evolved zombie beasts in the Thousand Poisons Ridge. It shouldn't be difficult to get 10 million kill points. Over the next few days, Immortal had been slaughtering these zombie beasts in the Thousand Poisons Ridge. His kill points were quickly accumulating. At the same time, in the huge cave, the corpse asked a tribe leader below, "That human should be dead. That human should be dead. Tell me, how did he die? Let me be happy too." The tribe leader hesitated for a moment before replying, "He is not dead yet." The corpse frowned and asked the tribe leader, "What happened? What happened?" The tribe leader replied, "Through our surveillance, we found that the poisonous fog there has no effect on him at all." The corpse asked again, "What about the zombie beasts? There are so many super-evolved zombie beasts there. I don't believe that those super-evolved zombie beasts have no effect on him. Especially those hundreds and thousands of zombie beasts, they can easily tear him apart." The tribe leader replied, "He killed a lot of super-evolved zombie beasts. And it seems that the more he kills, the more excited he gets. He specifically targets large groups of zombie beasts. According to our estimates, he has slaughtered more than 50 zombie beasts in the past few days." The corpse leader's expression changed when he heard that. Is this guy that strong? The other 50 or so tribe leaders didn't dare to make a sound. After a long while, the corpse leader said, "If that's the case, it seems that we have to ask the corpse ancestor to come out." The tribe leaders were all surprised when they heard that. The corpse ancestor's strength was above the super-evolved zombie beasts. Even a level 10 super-evolved zombie beasts had to be respectful in front of the corpse ancestor. If the corpse ancestor came out, killing that kid would be a piece of cake. But the problem was that the corpse ancestor hadn't appeared for a long time. Normally, the corpse ancestor wouldn't appear unless it was an extremely important matter. Although the matter this time was rather important, it couldn't even be considered very important, let alone extremely important. Would the corpse ancestor come out? The corpse leader looked at the suspicious gazes of the zombie leaders and shook his head. "I know what you're worried about, but this time, we have to ask the corpse ancestor to come out no matter what. If we're late, I'm afraid it'll be too late. I'm afraid our entire zombie beasts will be annihilated." The zombie leaders were all shocked when they heard that. A mere human could cause the entire zombie beasts to be annihilated? Was this a joke? But looking at the corpse leader's expression, it clearly wasn't a joke. The expressions of all the corpse commanders turned solemn. On this day, Immortal's kill points had reached more than 200 trillion after continuously slaughtering these zombie beasts. With less than 800 trillion, he would be able to level up again. But in the past few days, zombie beasts that numbered more than 100,000 had rarely appeared. First of all, Immortal had already annihilated many large zombie beast clans. Secondly, these zombie beasts had a certain level of intelligence. They had long given up on dealing with this human when they saw how difficult it was to deal with him. Instead, they had all gone into hiding, afraid that this human would cause trouble for them. Speaking of which, these zombie beasts were all very bitter in their hearts. In the past, when those humans came to this mountain, they fought to kill them. But this time, this human was simply too valiant. They couldn't wait to hide, so how would they dare to show themselves in front of this human? Chapter 526. Immortal was a little depressed at this moment. When he first arrived, the Thousand Poisons Ridge's corpse general beasts were still in groups, and it was a scene of prosperity. Why were there suddenly no corpse general beasts? If these corpse general beasts knew what Immortal was thinking, they would probably beat him to death. Wasn't it all your fault? Why are you still pretending to be innocent? On this day, Immortal finally discovered another group of corpse general beasts. Moreover, there were more than 10 million corpse general beasts in this group. It was a group of corpse general ants. It was the largest group of corpse general beasts in the entire Thousand Poisons Ridge. Although each corpse general ant was only the size of a house cat, due to their numbers advantage, no corpse general beasts in the entire Thousand Poisons Ridge dared to fight them. It could be said that this group of corpse general ants was at the top of the food chain in the Thousand Poisons Ridge. This group of corpse general ants had roamed the Thousand Poisons Ridge for millions of years. They were indifferent to life and death, and would fight if they were dissatisfied. No corpse general beasts dared to provoke them. It could be said that other than themselves, no other creature in this world was their enemy. When Immortal discovered this group of corpse general ants, he was so excited that his body trembled. He originally thought that it would take a few more months for him to level up. He did not expect happiness to come so suddenly. The 5 mountains below were all nests of corpse general ants. Immortal was thinking of a way to lure all the corpse general ants out, and then use a demon-suppressing orb to deal with them. After 2 hours of trying, he failed. At most, only 1 mountain's corpse general ants would come out each time. At this rate, wouldn't he be wasting 4 more demon-suppressing orbs? Moreover, if he killed all the corpse general ants in 1 mountain, the rest of the corpse general ants might hide inside and not come out. Immortal thought for a moment, and finally slapped his head. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. How could he forget this? However, just as he was about to make a move, he suddenly frowned. This was because he detected a figure rapidly flying towards him from 1,000 kilometers away. What surprised him the most was that this figure didn't use any energy when flying. It did not have wings or any auxiliary flying devices. It just stood in the air and flew toward him at a speed of dozens of kilometers per second. Immortal used the eye of the demon dragon to check his level. Type, General Corpse. Level 1 Corpse Ancestor. What the hell is Corpse Ancestor? Immortal asked. In his mind, the system's voice sounded frowny face. Level 1 Corpse Ancestor is an existence that surpasses the Grand Desolate Master Realm. Immortal understood. So it was a realm even higher than the Grand Desolate Master. It seemed that he had to be careful. Soon, the Corpse Ancestor arrived within 10 kilometers of Immortal. Immortal condensed a pair of devil dragon wings on his back and flew into the air. The two of them faced each other from a distance of 10 kilometers. With their strength, although they were 5 kilometers away, they could even see each other's hair. At their level, 10 kilometers was the maximum distance they could react to. If they were any closer and one of them suddenly attacked, the other wouldn't be able to react in time. Immortal sized up the Corpse Ancestor. He was not hundreds of meters tall like the other general corpses. He was only the size of a normal human. The skin on his body was wrinkled. If someone with OCD were to see this, they would probably want to flatten him with an iron. On his wrinkled head, there were a few thin strands of long white hair. The white hair fluttered in the wind, giving off an ethereal feeling. His face, hands, and feet all looked like a normal human. There were no fangs or claws. Immortal was secretly surprised. Could it be that after evolving into a corpse ancestor, he would become more like a human? It seemed that the stronger a creature was, the more human-like it would be. So the human form was the most suitable form in the universe? The corpse ancestor was also carefully sizing up Immortal. After a while, he opened his mouth and said, "You're that human?" The words that came out of his mouth were actually in human language. Immortal nodded, "Yes." The corpse ancestor paused, then said with a hoarse voice, "I don't want to fight, but I advise you to leave my world immediately." Immortal chuckled and said, "You general corpses destroyed my world. I had no choice but to come to your world to hunt general corpses. Only then can I barely survive." The corpse ancestor said coldly, "Since that's the case, there's no room for discussion?" Immortal made an inviting gesture, "Bring it on." The corpse ancestor said coldly, "This is your last chance." Immortal smiled, "That's what I wanted to tell you." Seeing Immortal being so stubborn, the corpse ancestor's eyes flickered with red light. Then he slowly clenched his right fist. 3 long spikes slowly grew out from the gaps between the 3 fingers of his right fist, a little like Uncle Wolf's claws. However, they were not steel claws, but extremely sharp horny claws. At the same time, his left arm rapidly changed and became thicker. A bony defensive layer formed on the surface of his left arm. Overall, his left arm looked like an American shield. Immortal was slightly puzzled when he saw this. At the level of the corpse ancestor, shouldn't the battle be like Star Wars, with lasers flying back and forth? Why was he so primitive, using claws and shields? Immortal tried to plunder the corpse ancestor's memories to take a look. But soon, the system sent a notification: frowny face, plunder failed. Obviously, the corpse ancestor's realm was much higher than Immortal's. Therefore, the chances of failure were higher. Shaking his head, the dragon salure suddenly appeared in Immortal's right hand. When the corpse ancestor saw the dragon salure in Immortal's hand, he only glanced at the unremarkable blade. However, his body did not move at all. From Immortal's right arm, energy continued to pour into the dragon salure. The corpse ancestor still did not move at all. After the dragon salure finished charging, Immortal looked at the corpse ancestor. His gaze instantly became sharp. He swung the blade down with his right hand. There was no energy, no sound. The ground beneath the corpse ancestor was directly split open, creating a huge crack that was 10 kilometers long and 300 meters wide. However, the corpse ancestor had already disappeared in an instant. When he reappeared, he was already behind Immortal's back. The sharp claws on his right hand pierced towards Immortal's back. Puff! It instantly pierced through his heart. Immortal was startled. He had yet to regain his senses. Puff! The sharp claws had already been pulled out, and then he waved them again. Shwa! His head had already flown high into the air. At this moment, there was only one thought in Immortal's mind: so damn fast. Only now did he truly understand the corpse ancestor's fighting style. There were no fancy movements, no huge amount of energy. There was only one word: fast. Furthermore, the corpse ancestor had actually used energy. However, he did not release his energy, but instead gathered it on his claws. This would make the claws 100 times sharper. Coupled with his speed, he would be invincible. This was the fighting style of someone who had reached a certain realm. Chapter 527. Corpse ancestor chopped off Immortal's head, but his old bark-like face didn't have the slightest bit of expression. His pair of gray eyes also didn't have a trace of emotion. Instead, he looked at Immortal's headless corpse that was rapidly falling, motionless. And at this moment, another figure appeared behind corpse ancestor without any warning. The moment this figure appeared, a jet-black pig slaughtering knife in his right hand chopped down at corpse ancestor's head. That's right, this person was Immortal. Facing a guy who he had never seen before who was at a higher realm than him, how could Immortal not be prepared at all? The one who had his head chopped off earlier was naturally his clone. At this moment, Immortal suddenly chopped down with his knife. Corpse ancestor's reaction was also extremely fast. Although Immortal was behind him, it was as if he had eyes on his back. His body slanted slightly, dodging Immortal's knife. At the same time, the sharp claws on his right hand directly slashed towards Immortal's abdomen. Immortal hurriedly dodged backwards. With his experience, his dragon-slaughtering knife could only display its greatest power from a distance. If it was in close range, it would be very difficult to display its power. But corpse ancestor's battle experience was extremely rich. He didn't give Immortal a chance to escape at all. He directly chased after Immortal. At the same time, his right claws continuously stabbed towards Immortal's chest, eyes, and neck. In the past battles, Immortal had mostly relied on his powerful strength or powerful weapons to crush his opponents within 1 or 2 moves. It was very rare for him to fight in close range with an opponent who was slightly stronger than him. For a moment, it was somewhat difficult for him to adapt. He only had the power to parry and didn't have the ability to counterattack. With a single teleport, he appeared several hundred meters away. But in the next moment, corpse ancestor also teleported over. And the moment he arrived, he was behind Immortal and his sharp claws pierced towards the back of Immortal's head. Immortal suddenly somersaulted forward, dodging this claw. At the same time, his right leg suddenly kicked towards Corpse Ancestor's face as he somersaulted in the air. The shield on Ancestor Corpse's left arm blocked Immortal's kick, and the sharp claws on his right arm struck towards Immortal once again. As Immortal retreated, black dragon scales appeared on his body. This guy's attacks were too fast and fierce. He wasn't very good at close combat, so he really couldn't take it. Ding 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 ding. Just as Immortal's dragon scales covered his entire body, that fellow's sharp claws had already slashed 5 times across Immortal's body. It created a series of sparks. A wisp of surprise flashed on Corpse Ancestor's withered face that seemed to be eternally expressionless like an old tree. However, his hands did not stop moving at all. Since he couldn't do any damage to Immortal's body, the shield on his left arm came in handy. He continued to hit Immortal's body viciously. Bang! It smashed onto Immortal's shoulder. Bang! It landed on Immortal's chest. Bang! It landed on Immortal's head. It landed on Immortal to the point that he felt a bit dizzy. This fellow's shield didn't look heavy, but when it landed on him, it was extremely powerful. It smashed Immortal to the point that he kept falling towards the ground. However, when Immortal was only 500 meters away from the ground, his shield smashed onto Immortal's chest. Bang! This was the most powerful attack. Immortal was smashed into the left side of the mountain. Boom! His entire body sank into the cliff. But before he could react, a voice suddenly rang out. Corpse Ancestor's shield instantly appeared in front of him and smashed towards his chest. Immortal gathered all the energy in his body to his chest, instantly forming an energy shield. He wanted to block this attack. However, just as the shield was about to hit the energy shield, Corpse Ancestor's sharp claws suddenly pierced out, aiming straight for Immortal's eyes. Although Immortal's head was covered in scales, his eyes weren't. At this moment, Immortal instantly understood Corpse Ancestor's plan. This fellow was simply too shrewd. Previously, he kept hitting him with his shield just to numb him, to make him focus all his attention on his shield. However, at this crucial moment, his sharp claws suddenly appeared and pierced towards Immortal's eyes. He was indeed extremely shrewd, but also extremely vicious. Puff! This claw viciously pierced into Immortal's eyes. His entire body was nailed into the stone wall. However, at this moment, another figure had already appeared behind Corpse Ancestor. Another pig-slaughtering knife in his hand slashed towards Corpse Ancestor. Corpse Ancestor's figure flashed and disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already behind Immortal. He dodged the pig-slaughtering knife. At the same time, he clamped his legs around Immortal's waist. His left arm fiercely strangled Immortal's neck. The sharp claws in his hand pierced towards Immortal's eyes. Immortal learned his lesson this time. He suddenly raised his left arm horizontally in front of his eyes. He blocked the sharp claws. Seeing that his attack failed, Corpse Ancestor's left arm loosened Immortal's grip. At the same time, the shield on his left arm continuously smashed towards Immortal. After a while, this clone of Immortal was also killed. However, soon, another clone of Immortal appeared. Corpse Ancestor didn't care at all at first. After all, many creatures knew the clone technique. This wasn't strange. However, as time passed, his indifference turned into surprise, then shock, then amazement, and finally disbelief. It was already very good for an ordinary creature to have one clone. It was already very rare to have two. He had only heard of creatures that could have 3 to 5 clones, but he had never seen one before. However, this fellow had already killed more than 30 of his clones, and they were still appearing endlessly. Was there no end to this guy's doppelgangers? However, it didn't matter. He didn't believe that his clone wouldn't run out. 50 should be the limit. However, after killing 50 clones, the 51st one quickly jumped out. Then the 60th one. The 70th one. The 80th one. This caused Corpse Ancestor to break down. Others only had 2 or 3 clones, but this fellow already had 80 clones, and they were still jumping out endlessly. Think about it, no matter how strong you were, how would you feel when you encountered such a situation? He killed one after another. He killed 10 after 10. As the saying goes, even if you kill one of me, there will be thousands of me. Wasn't this very frustrating? At the same time, Immortal was enjoying the exposure bath in his own space on Earth. He was enjoying Corpse Ancestor's performance. At the same time, he would occasionally comment, "This clone died so miserably. It was almost smashed into a meat patty. This clone's eyes were pierced through by spikes. Fortunately, it wasn't my main body. Hey, this is too much. You directly let such a long spike go through my mouth and come out from below. Do you have to be so cruel?" In fact, Immortal wasn't just enjoying his clones being killed one by one. He let his clones fight Corpse Ancestor one by one because he wanted to learn some close combat experience from Corpse Ancestor. Chapter 528. While Corpse Ancestor was killing Immortal's clones, Immortal was hiding in his own space on Earth, leisurely sunbathing. At the same time, he was also learning Corpse Ancestor's fighting style with the help of these clones. Corpse Ancestor's fighting style didn't seem to have any huge energy, nor did it have any destructive power. But every move was extremely dangerous. If he wasn't careful, he would lose his life. If Immortal really fought with Corpse Ancestor, he would have died a long time ago. And this kind of fighting style saved a lot of energy. If they fought like this, everyone could fight for a long time. There was no need to worry about endurance. Finally, after Corpse Ancestor killed Immortal's 100th clone, with a thought, Immortal arrived behind Corpse Ancestor. The moment he appeared, the dragon-slaying saber in his right hand had already silently pierced towards Corpse Ancestor's back. At this time, Corpse Ancestor couldn't remember how many clones he had killed. He was already a little irritated. At this moment, he felt the danger behind him. He turned around abruptly. At the same time that he used his body to spin away from the tip of the saber, the sharp claws on his right arm had already pierced towards Immortal's chest. At this time, Immortal had already adapted to his close combat style. His body also twisted in an extremely strange way, dodging this claw. At the same time, the saber that had already stabbed out, after deviating by a foot, was suddenly pulled back. All of this seemed to take a long time, but in fact, this stab and pull was completed in a short instant. Chi! With a soft sound, the dragon-slaying saber directly cut a 2-inch long wound on Corpse Ancestor's waist. Black blood immediately spurted out. Corpse Ancestor finally had a surprised expression on his face. The strength of his body was definitely not something that could be hurt by a sword. How could this guy's unremarkable saber actually cut his skin? However, he didn't care. His self-healing ability was extremely strong. It was just a superficial wound, so what was it? Thus, he continued to fight with Immortal. His shield smashed heavily into Immortal's body from time to time. Immortal's dragon-slaughtering saber also left bloody wounds on his body from time to time. As for Corpse Ancestor, the more he fought, the more shocked he became. First of all, this fellow was more than 10 times stronger than all of the previous clones. From the looks of it, this should be the real body. Secondly, the wounds that this guy had left on his body showed no signs of healing. The wound left behind at the beginning was still bleeding profusely. The black blood that flowed out of the dozens of wounds on his body had long since dyed his entire body black. Seeing that he couldn't kill this guy, and that guy was leaving more and more wounds on his body, he knew that he could not delay any longer. His ultimate move might be able to kill this fellow, but the release of the ultimate move required time to accumulate power. And at this moment, this guy definitely wouldn't give him the time to gather power. Therefore, he could only temporarily flee and avoid the brunt of the attack. Then, he hid in the dark and secretly accumulated power. At that time, he would take advantage of the fact that he was unprepared and kill him with a big move. The plan was very good, but would it really work? At this moment, Immortal was smashed to the ground by Corpse Ancestor's shield. Then, he quickly flew into the distance. However, Immortal only moved his mind. When Corpse Ancestor flew over a mountain ridge, 2 blood-red chains suddenly extended from the mountain ridge. They instantly shot out like lightning and wrapped around Corpse Ancestor's feet. Corpse Ancestor lowered his head and looked at the two blood-red chains. He sneered in his heart. A mere chain actually wanted to bind Corpse Ancestor? As expected, humans were still too naive. Thinking of this, he slashed at the chain on his right foot with his right claw. Ding ding ding. An ear-piercing sound rang out. The blood-red chain emitted a burst of sparks. However, only 3 faint marks appeared on it. There was no sign of it breaking at all. Corpse Ancestor was shocked. His sharp claws could cut through iron like mud and were invincible. But now, he couldn't even cut a mere chain. It could be seen that these chains were definitely not ordinary. In fact, these 2 chains were naturally not ordinary. They were Immortal's dragon binding lasso. Now, Immortal's dragon binding lasso could appear in many different ways. It could be a single thick chain, or it could be a few or even dozens of chains. In short, it could be freely changed according to Immortal's will. Corpse Ancestor's claw couldn't break it, so he hurriedly tried to use teleportation to escape. However, he had clearly underestimated the power of this dragon binding lasso. Not only could the dragon binding lasso trap the opponent, it could also compress the opponent's energy level and strength level to the maximum. As a result, Corpse Ancestor's strength was at most equivalent to a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. It was far from his peak level. At this moment, Immortal flew out from the pit on the ground. Corpse Ancestor expected that this human would definitely fly over. Therefore, he said, "Who exactly are you? How can you be so strong?" With these words, he numbed Immortal. At the same time, he condensed energy in his right arm. He was accumulating energy for his big move. He wanted to release his strongest attack when he was cornered. He wanted to let this lowly human know that Corpse Ancestor was sacred and inviolable. However, Immortal wasn't surprised at all. He stood on the ground and raised his head to look at the bound Corpse Ancestor above the mountain ridge. He held the dragon salure with both hands that had already been infused with energy and swept it towards Corpse Ancestor like a golf player. At this moment, a huge gap that was 500 meters wide appeared on the mountain ridge that was 10,000 meters long and 500 meters tall. As for Corpse Ancestor, under the attack of the dragon salure, he directly turned into a black rain of blood that filled the sky and sprinkled down. The ground below was dyed black. Whoosh! Immortal heaved a sigh of relief. This Corpse Ancestor was really difficult to deal with. But then again, this dragon salure was really powerful. Corpse Ancestor's strong body couldn't withstand a single attack from the dragon salure. Of course, he had also learned a lot of combat skills from Corpse Ancestor. In the future, when he encountered a powerful enemy, it wouldn't just be a competition of energy and physical strength. He could use more techniques to defeat his opponent. At this moment, after exterminating Corpse Ancestor, Immortal returned to his own space on Earth. With a thought, he instantly recovered all of his exhausted stamina and energy. Only then did he return to the Thousand Poison Ridge. He looked at the 5 mountain peaks where the Corpse General Ant Nest was located. Then, it was time to exterminate these tens of millions of Corpse General Ants. At the same time, in a cave more than 10,000 kilometers away, the 50 or so tribe leaders and the corpse were looking at a stone wall in front of them. On this stone wall, there were many mountains, forests, rivers, and deserts. It looked like a map. On the map, there were 2 dots of light, one red and one green, moving around. One of the corpse leaders looked at the green dot of light and said, "Corpse, is there a problem with Corpse Ancestor?" The corpse glared at the corpse leader. "What do you think?" Chapter 529. More than 50 Corpse General Tribe leaders and Corpse Ancestor kept looking at the 2 light spots on the map on the stone wall. These 2 light spots were green and red. The green one represented Corpse Ancestor, and the red one represented that human. After a long while, a tribe leader asked, "Is Corpse Ancestor all right?" As soon as this was said, the other leaders all turned to look at this leader as if they were looking at an idiot. Corpse Ancestor glared at him. "What do you think?" That tribe leader also felt that he had said something wrong. He quickly took a step back and said, "Corpse Ancestor is invincible and invincible." That lowly human is just a little worm in front of corpse ancestor. After saying this, he felt that the tribe leaders had shifted their gazes away from him. He secretly raised his head to take a look, and corpse ancestor's expression became better. However, this tribe leader still had a question in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he finally made up his mind and asked, I'm just wondering why we still haven't killed that lowly human after such a long time? This sentence was the common thought of all the leaders present. Their corpse ancestor was invincible and invincible. This was without a doubt. But why was it that it had been half an hour, and there was still no winner? Was that human so strong that he could withstand corpse ancestor's attacks for half an hour? However, although these leaders were puzzled, they didn't dare to ask. Because as long as they asked, they would be labeled as doubting corpse ancestor by the other leaders. Fortunately, this iron fool asked at this time. They didn't have to worry about it anymore. Corpse ancestor glared at that iron fool again. He said, "You dare to doubt corpse ancestor?" That corpse general leader immediately broke out in cold sweat when he heard this. He quickly knelt down and said, "This subordinate doesn't dare." Corpse ancestor snorted coldly, "I don't think you dare either." Then he turned to look at the light spots on the wall behind him and said, "Maybe." Corpse ancestor is deliberately playing with this guy. As soon as these words were said, the other leaders seemed to have found a reasonable explanation. They were all relieved. Corpse ancestor is wise. We are far inferior to corpse ancestor. Corpse ancestor hasn't appeared for a long time. It's rare for him to come out, so of course he wants to relax. That guy is like corpse ancestor's prey. Corpse ancestor will play with him for the time being. When I'm done playing, I'll kill him. All the tribal leaders had relaxed and joyful expressions on their faces. But soon, the smile on the leader's face froze. He pointed at the map on the stone wall and was at a loss for words. Corpse ancestor, all the corpse generals turned their heads to look. Soon after, all of the corpse commanders were dumbfounded, and their expressions were exactly the same as the iron and simple-minded leader. Even the corpse widened its gray eyes. His gray eyes were filled with disbelief and incredulity. Because the green dot on the stone wall map had been extinguished, what did this mean? The corpse ancestor's life force vanished. This thought made the corpse generals look as if they had seen a ghost. As far as they knew, the corpse ancestor was immortal. It was said that the corpse ancestor had lived for over 30,000 years, and he would live forever. But now, he was dead. How was this possible? They couldn't believe it. They didn't want to believe it. How did corpse ancestor die? However, the light spots would not lie. Their stone wall map was a special corpse tool refined by the corpse ancestor. As long as it captured the aura of a certain creature, and then controlled the aura into the stone wall map, it would be able to see the location and life force of that creature. The location on the map represented the location of that creature. The light spots on the map represented the life force of that creature. For 30,000 years, this light spot had never been wrong. Something refined by the corpse ancestor could never be wrong. In other words, the corpse ancestor's life force had already vanished. The corpse ancestor was dead. This caused the higher-ups of the corpse generals to be both terrified and confused. After a long while, the iron and simple-minded leader asked, "Corpse leader, what do we do now?" The corpse leader pondered for a long while before speaking. "Hide." The moment these words were spoken, the corpse generals all looked at the corpse leader in shock. In their eyes, humans were lowly and insignificant insects. But now the corpse generals, had to hide for the sake of a mere human. This was simply a huge joke. But at this moment, none of the corpse generals could laugh. They all knew how serious the situation was. If the corpse ancestor was truly dead, then the human on the surface was so powerful that it was simply unimaginable. Facing such an enemy, what else could they do? They could only hide. The corpse leader said, "Before we confirm the whereabouts of the corpse ancestor, no one is allowed to appear in front of that human." All the leaders had solemn expressions as they replied, "Yes." After the corpse leader finished speaking, He turned to look at the blood-red light spot on the stone wall map. They had sacrificed so many corpse generals to lure this fellow to the Myriad Poisons Ridge. They had originally thought that the poisonous creatures in the Myriad Poisons Ridge would definitely not let this fellow live for more than 2 days. In the end, they had not expected this fellow to survive in the Myriad Poisons Ridge for so long. He had even gone on a killing spree in the Myriad Poisons Ridge. And now, they suspected that he had even killed the corpse ancestor. How could this human be so powerful? At this moment, Immortal was in the air above the Myriad Poisons Ridge, looking down at the 5 mountain peaks that were shaped like human fingers. These 5 mountain peaks were like the 5-finger mountains of Tathagata. The basin below was like a palm. Within these 5 mountain peaks were 5 general corpse ant nests. And according to his investigation, the corpse ant queen lived under the ground of the palm. Immortal was not interested in the ant queen. Previously, when he killed the corpse ancestor, he only obtained a mere 10 slaughter points. So now he wanted quantity, not quality. The tens of millions of corpse general ants in the ant nests were his true target. However, these corpse general ants were well organized. At most, only one ant nest would have all the corpse general ants come out. In that case, he would have to waste 5 demon-suppressing orbs. So, that was only a last resort. As for the best plan, Immortal had already thought of it. At this moment, he teleported and arrived at the ant nest under the giant palm. This was a large hall that was several thousand square meters in size. The floor, walls, and ceiling of the hall were crawling with corpse general ants the size of house cats. Immortal raised his eyes and looked around. These corpse commander ants were squeezing together. There were countless of them. However, although there were many corpse general ants, they were not in a mess. On the contrary, they were entering and exiting in an orderly manner. It was as if there was someone directing the traffic. Upon closer inspection, each corpse general ant had a pair of sharp little clamps on its head. It was like a pair of scissors that could easily cut rocks into pieces. Chapter 530. At the foot of the 5 Fingers Mountain, 500 meters below the palm. In the underground ant nest. Corpse general ants the size of house cats were densely packed everywhere. Someone with trypophobia would probably be scared to death here. Even Immortal felt his scalp go numb. The moment Immortal appeared, the tens of thousands of corpse general ants actually stopped in unison. Immortal didn't give them a chance to react at all. He teleported again and arrived at a smaller cave. In this cave, there was a huge corpse general ant that was 100 meters long. It was dragging a huge, bloated abdomen that was like an oversized sack. It looked like it was extremely inconvenient to move. However, Immortal wouldn't let his guard down. This was because there were 2 scythe-like clamps on its head that were 10 meters long. This pair of clamps could easily cut through steel. This huge corpse general ant was the ant queen in this cave. It was responsible for producing corpse general ants. When the ant queen saw a human suddenly appear in the ant nest, she was a little puzzled. Immortal took out the dragon-slaying saber. The corpse general ant immediately let out an ear-piercing squeak. The 2 huge sickle-like clamps kept waving. The corpse general ant queen didn't immediately attack Immortal. It was an ant queen, and it was good at producing, not fighting. The squeaking sound from its throat wasn't a threat to Immortal, but to shake people, shake ants. The corpse general ants outside the ant queen's cave were all shocked when they heard the corpse general ant's voice. The corpse general ant's boudoir had been invaded. How could this be? They hurriedly rushed into the ant queen's boudoir. However, just as they arrived at the entrance of the ant queen's boudoir, rumble, there was a loud sound. A huge crack that was dozens of meters wide appeared from the top to the bottom of the ant queen's boudoir. All the corpse general ants were stunned. The ant queen's boudoir had cracked open. They hurriedly rushed into the ant queen's boudoir. They saw that the ant queen's body had already been broken into 2 halves. This was especially true for its huge, bag-like abdomen, which directly exploded. A large amount of black blood flowed out, as well as countless fist-sized ant eggs. The queen ant's head kept rolling on the ground. In the end, it rolled to the side of an upright creature. The creature stretched out its right foot and stepped on the queen's head. When the corpse commander ants saw this, their eyes were about to split open. Chi-chi, chi-chi-chi, chi-chi-chi, they all let out angry roars from their throats. The reproduction of their species depended on the ant queen. The death of the queen ant was the same as ending their bloodline, although they could cultivate another queen ant. However, the incubation period of an ant queen was very long, at least thousands of years. In other words, in the next few thousand years, their species would not have any new blood. If they encountered a powerful enemy, their species would be finished. It was truly over. This caused these soldier ants to be unable to restrain their anger. At this moment, Immortal made an even more provocative move. He stepped on the corpse ant queen's huge head and exerted force. The queen ant's head instantly shattered like a watermelon. Even the ground under the queen ant's head was caved in by Immortal's foot. When the corpse commander ants saw this, they almost split open. Chi, 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 chi. They all let out even sharper cries. Their originally large black eyes were now filled with blood vessels. They no longer cared and pounced on the two-legged creature. At this moment, Immortal condensed a pair of wings behind him and flew towards the top of the mountain that had been slashed open by two Dao. He flew out of the ground. The corpse commander ants behind him naturally chased after him relentlessly. As they chased, they let out sharp cries. Chi, 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 chi. Even more corpse general ants heard the angry signal and chased towards the ground. The corpse commander ant queen was destroyed, and even its head was crushed. This caused all of the corpse general ants to be furious. They no longer cared. As a result, the tens of millions of corpse commander ants on the 5 mountain peaks all surged towards the ground. Looking down from the sky, it was as if the 5 huge fingers had been pierced with thousands of bloody holes. Black blood continued to gush out from within. In the sky, Missouri sure looked at the corpse commander ants rolling towards him and finally smiled. A large number of corpse commander ants surged out from the cracks in the ground below Wang Yi. They saw that Wang Yi had already risen to more than 500 meters in the air. Thus, they began to build an ant tower. Countless corpse commander ants piled up higher and higher. Soon, they reached a height of more than 200 meters. It had to be said that the corpse commander ants were really united. However, no matter how fast they built, they were not as fast as Immortal's flying speed. Immortal's wings flapped slightly and he was about to continue rising. However, at this moment, in the sky, countless black things enveloped Immortal. When Immortal looked up, he saw that they were corpse commander ants with transparent wings. These corpse commander ants were much larger than ordinary corpse commander ants. Each of them was about the size of a dog. They had 2 pairs of transparent wings, and like a large dark cloud, they enveloped Immortal. In almost an instant, Immortal was completely enveloped. In addition, the ant towers below were also surging down. Under the pincer attack, Immortal had nowhere to run. He fell from a height of 500 meters. As a result, tens of thousands of corpse commander ants continued to swarm towards Immortal. They formed a huge ant ball around Immortal, enveloping him. However, this was not the end. In the nest of corpse commander ants, there were still countless corpse commander ants that continued to swarm towards the giant dragon ball. Every corpse commander ant seemed to want to get a piece of meat. 15 minutes later, this huge ant ball had reached a diameter of 1 kilometer. If anyone else saw this scene, they would be extremely shocked. The giant ant ball with a diameter of 1 kilometer kept rolling in the center of the giant palm formed by the 5-finger mountain. After a few more minutes, all the ant nests were empty. Tens of millions of corpse commander ants were all attached to the giant ant ball. The scene looked extremely terrifying. It was also at this moment that the black ball of corpse general ants suddenly emitted a chaotic radiance. This light was extremely sharp. It pierced through the giant ant ball in almost an instant. Then, it spread throughout the entire world. No matter what kind of creature it was, they were temporarily blinded at this moment. They could not see anything. Or rather, what they could see was the chaotic color that filled the entire world. The sky was chaotic, and the earth was chaotic. The mountains were chaotic, and the water was chaotic. Even they themselves had turned into the color of chaos. 5 minutes later, the chaotic color finally receded. The entire world was quiet. Chapter 5:31. When the primal chaos-colored light gradually dissipated, Qin Feng's expression changed. The entire world was finally peaceful. The world was still the same world. The forest was still the same forest. But the giant ant ball, the tens of thousands of corpse general ants, had completely disappeared, as if they had never existed. Immortal floated in the air, his body unscathed. Although those corpse general ants looked terrifying, they were all level 1 super-evolved corpse general beasts. They couldn't even break through his energy shield. In Immortal's mind, the system's pleasant voice finally sounded frowny face total kill points, 1082, 3,775 trillion. You can advance to rank 6. Advance immediately? Immortal replied in his mind, advance. This advancement will take 5 minutes. The system prompted. Soon, 5 minutes had passed. The system's pleasant voice sounded in Immortal's mind again, frowny face advancement successful. Immortal took a deep breath, feeling the surging energy in his body. He was slightly excited. He was already at rank 6. Would rank 10 be far away? Would the next rank be far away? Since he had this corpse general world to collect kill points, he must seize the time to advance his strength to super-evolved giant dragon before those giant dragons arrived. According to the giant dragon world's strength classification, the giant dragons were giant dragon, evolved giant dragon, super-evolved giant dragon, ancient giant dragon, archaic ancestral dragon, dragon god. In the 10,000 dragon realm, every giant dragon was born as a giant dragon. Most giant dragons, in their long lives, remained as giant dragons their entire lives. It was difficult to advance further. And out of 100 giant dragons, only one could become an evolved giant dragon. Out of 100 evolved giant dragons, only one super-evolved giant dragon. In other words, out of 10,000 giant dragons, only one super-evolved giant dragon could be born. Therefore, only by becoming a super-evolved giant dragon could one be considered a giant dragon powerhouse. Immortal estimated that if another giant dragon came to the Flaming Land to investigate Kong Jiu's death, it would at most be a rank 10 evolved giant dragon. Therefore, to be safe, he must become a super-evolved giant dragon, one rank higher than them. Only then would he be able to crush them. Thinking of this, Immortal closed his eyes and sensed the situation in the Dragon Palace. Fortunately, the Dragon Palace hadn't been attacked by any general corpse yet. By now, Immortal had pretty much wrecked the entire Myriad Poisons Ridge. It was time to go to the next place. But before he left, there was one more thing he had to do. System, check in for a special event. The system's voice replied instantly, frowny face sign in successful. Sign in event, slaughter of zombie ants. Sign in reward, 1 corpse general ant queen. The next moment, a corpse general ant queen appeared in Immortal's backpack. It was 100 meters long and had a huge belly. There was also a sickle-shaped clamp on its head that was several meters long. It was exactly the same as the corpse general ant queen that Immortal had killed. Immortal was puzzled. He took a closer look at the corpse ant queen. Corpse general ant queen, level 2 super-evolved corpse general beast. Through continuous eating, they could continue to lay eggs. The more it eats, the faster it will lay eggs. Don't you need to breed for this? Immortal asked. The system replied, the corpse general ant queen is not an ant. It is a hermaphrodite and can complete all tasks by itself. Immortal nodded. Understood. With a thought, he took out the corpse general ant queen from his backpack. He could feel that he was connected to this corpse general ant queen. With a thought, he could order this corpse general ant queen. He asked with his mind, are you hungry? The corpse general ant queen nodded its huge head, and at the same time, the pair of sickle-shaped clamps on its mouth kept waving quickly. Emosure moved his mind again, and his dragon will lifted a corpse beast that was more than 100 meters long. The corpse beast was 5 kilometers away when it was suddenly lifted up by an inexplicable force. It was shocked. It let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered. It kept struggling with its 6 legs. But under Emosure's huge dragon will, it couldn't move at all. Finally, it was placed in front of the corpse general ant queen. When the corpse general ant queen saw its food, its huge eyes lit up. A pair of front legs with sharp hooks pierced into the corpse beast's body and pulled. Hiss! The corpse beast was split into 2 halves. It quickly tore off a piece of meat from the corpse general ant queen's sickle-shaped clamps, picked it up, and stuffed it into its mouth. Then, it quickly picked up a second piece of meat and stuffed it into its mouth. Its speed was extremely fast and its frequency was extremely high. The 100-meter-long beast was completely devoured in just a minute. Not even its bones were left. It was also at this moment that the bottom of its abdomen began to wriggle quickly. A moment later, 10 grayish-white, fist-sized eggs were laid. Emosure looked at these eggs and sighed to himself. The corpse general ant queen was very efficient. It had just finished eating and it had already laid 10 eggs. If humans could be so fast, there wouldn't be so many infertility cases. But looking at the 10 grayish-white eggs, he was a little worried. Queen, how long will it take for these eggs to become corpse general ants? The queen's answer was, 10 days. Emosure shook his head. 10 days was too slow. With a thought, he brought the 10 eggs into Earth space. Then he sped up the flow of time. In just an instant, cracks appeared on the 10 eggs. Then one by one, black legs burst out of the eggs. Heads popped out one by one. Soon, 10 tiny corpse general ants popped out. Emosure moved his mind again and brought the 10 fist-sized corpse general ants to the corpse general ant queen. The corpse general ant queen was shocked. So fast. Emosure said again. A newborn corpse general ant isn't big enough. The corpse general ant queen immediately communicated with Emosure through its mind. They also need to eat continuously to grow bigger. Emosure nodded. Then, Long Nian caught another corpse general ant. When the 10 little ones saw it, they were instantly excited. They climbed onto the 100-meter-long beast's body and kept biting. The 5 little ones only spent 10 minutes to gnaw off a 10-meter-long leg of the 100-meter-long beast. As for their size, it was obvious that they had grown. They were about 1/5 bigger than before. Emosure nodded. They're growing quite fast. The rest of the unfinished beast meat was given to the ant queen. The queen's appetite was much bigger. In just a minute, it quickly swallowed the beast. Then, it laid another 10 eggs. Using the same method, Emosure made the 10 eggs break out of their shells in an extremely short period of time. Then, he continued to feed them. Newborn corpse general ants didn't have a big appetite. Or rather, ordinary corpse general ants didn't have a big appetite. Only the corpse general ant queen. This guy seemed to be a bottomless pit. It seemed that no matter how much meat was placed in front of it, it could easily finish it and then continue to lay eggs. Chapter 5:32. The more the corpse ant queen ate, the faster it grew. In just one day, it had already given birth to 100 corpse general ants. And on this day, the first 10 corpse general ants had also grown to twice their original size. Emosure looked at the 500 corpse general ants and had an idea in his mind. He had originally planned to leave the 1,000 Poisons Ridge that he had almost destroyed. But now, he planned to nurture this corpse ant colony first. He needed at least 10,000 corpse general ants to form a scale. Then, he would go to the cities of the corpse general ants and mess with them. After all, the corpse general ants that the corpse general ants killed were also for Emosure's kill points. It was easy to imagine how much kill points he would get if he had millions or even tens of millions of corpse general ants in a corpse general city. Don't call it cruel. When the corpse general ants invaded the flaming continent, they had no mercy at all. If they still talked about mercy when dealing with invaders, they would be too saintly. The next day, Emosure continued. The corpse general ant queen gave birth to another 100 corpse general ants. and the first batch of corpse general ants from the day before had grown to 3 times their original size. On the third day, the corpse general ants gave birth to another 100 corpse general ants. And the first 10 corpse general ants were now fully grown. They were the size of a house cat. It only took 3 days for a corpse ant to fully mature from its birth to maturity. This speed was unparalleled. Then, after another 7 days, he finally gave birth to 1,000 corpse general ants. This reproduction speed was already very fast. But Immortal felt that it was not enough. 10 days to give birth to 1,000. Then wouldn't it take 100 days to give birth to 10,000? Where did he have that much time? Fortunately, the corpse general ant queen's body suddenly began to change. Its skin began to turn white. Then, the skin on its back split open. Its entire body drilled out of the skin with difficulty. This process took half a day. Finally, when it drilled out, its body began to grow rapidly. In just half an hour, it reached 200 meters. And the white skin from before gradually hardened, forming a white empty shell. So this guy was molting. At this moment, Immortal used the demon dragon's eyes to look at it. Species, corpse general ant queen, level 2 evolved beast, skill, production. It turned out that after eating enough meat, it leveled up after shedding its skin. Then, it quickly began to devour the corpse of the giant beast in front of it. Its frequency was faster, and each time it tore off a larger chunk of flesh. It only took half a minute for the 100-meter-long beast to finish eating. However, he still felt that this was not enough. Immortal used his dragon will to control another 5 giant beasts. After swallowing all 5 beasts, the corpse ant queen was finally satisfied. It began to exert itself. Soon, a corpse ant egg rolled out from under its abdomen. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 30. It wasn't until the 100th one that it finally stopped producing. Seeing this, Immortal was overjoyed. Good housework, directly laying 100 eggs in one go. Wouldn't she be able to lay thousands of eggs in a day? 10,000 pills in 10 days? In fact, the corpse general ant queen had produced more corpse general ants than Immortal had expected. On the second day, it produced 1,300 corpse general ant eggs. In just a little more than 5 days, it had produced 9,000 eggs. In addition to the 1,000 corpse general ants from before, Immortal now had an army of 10,000 corpse general ants. However, this was still far from enough. He used his dragon will to investigate. At this time, there was nothing left in the 1,000 Poisons Ridge. Previously, in the 1,000 Poisons Ridge, there was a large number of corpse general ants. Since he had destroyed the corpse general ants, there was naturally nothing left. However, according to his investigation, there was a large mountain about 300 kilometers to the east of the 1,000 Poisons Ridge. On this mountain, there was a group of corpse general tigers. This group of corpse general tigers had about 3,000 of them. For the 10,000 corpse general ants, it was considered a lot. Immortal immediately put these 10,000 corpse general ants into Earth space. Then, with a teleport, he arrived at the mountain more than 300 kilometers away. This mountain was not as big as the 1,000 Poisons Ridge. However, there were many species in it. There were also many corpse general beasts. Small groups had about 10 to 20 of them, while large groups had hundreds to thousands of them. Among them, the largest group was the corpse general tiger group. Immortal did not attack these half-corpse tigers immediately. Instead, he found a small group of about 20 corpse general beasts. Each of these corpse general beasts was about 100 meters long. For the 10,000 corpse general ants, it was more than enough. Immortal used his mind, and the dragon binding rope emerged from the ground. The blood-red dragon binding rope split into more than 20 ropes and tied up all the corpse general beasts. Then, he placed corpse general ants around them. The corpse general ants quickly climbed onto the bodies of these corpse general beasts and began to bite them. The corpse general ant queen was bitten even faster. In just 1 minute, 3 corpse general beasts were eaten. Immortal watched as the corpse general beast's skin was bitten open, revealing the flesh inside. Then, the flesh was continuously devoured until only the bones were left. In the end, even the bones were devoured. He was also secretly shocked in his heart. A single corpse general ant was very small. However, once a certain number of them reached a certain level, the corpse general ants were truly terrifying. It was no wonder that the 10 million corpse general ants could run rampant in the Thousand Poisons Ridge for tens of thousands of years. This was not without reason. After devouring these corpse general beasts, the corpse general ant queen laid eggs twice in just 10 minutes. Each time, it laid 100 eggs, no less, no less. Then, Immortal went to the next group of corpse general beasts. In this way, in just 10 days, the corpse general ant colony had reached more than 20,000. At this time, the corpse general ant shed its skin again. After shedding its skin, its body length had reached 300 meters. At this moment, if it had enough food, it could lay at most 1,000 eggs at a time. At most, it could lay 10,000 eggs a day. As long as it followed Immortal, it did not have to worry about not having enough food. In another short 8 days, it laid another 80,000 eggs. At this point, the total number of corpse general ants had reached 100,000. It had finally reached a certain level. Moreover, the corpse general ant queen, which had become a level 3 super evolved corpse general beast, could now directly produce aerial troops. However, if it were to produce aerial troops, it could only produce 1,000 of them each day. Immortal spent a day to make it produce 1,000 flying troops. In this way, Immortal did not have to take the initiative to find food for these corpse general ants. This was because these aerial troops could take advantage of the time when the corpse general beasts were not in their nests to steal their young. Due to the low probability of many aerial beasts reaching adulthood, they would lay hundreds of eggs each time. The number of hatchlings that had just hatched reached hundreds. This became the target of the corpse general ants. Chapter 5:33. With the flying corpse general ants, it was much more convenient. Immortal scouted the nest first, and found out which of the adult zombie beasts had left. Then, he let the flying corpse general ants easily bring the chicks back for the other corpse general ants to use. The chances of the corpse general birds successfully reaching adulthood were very small. Therefore, they usually laid a large number of eggs. This was definitely beneficial to Immortal. The flying corpse general ants only needed to search one nest, and they would be able to find dozens of flying corpse general beasts. Although these corpse general birds were only chicks, they could reach about 5 meters in size. Dozens of them were enough to feed the corpse general ants. On the second and third days, the corpse general ant queen laid another 1,000 flying corpse general ants. At this time, the number of flying corpse general ants had reached 3,000. At the same time, the corpse general birds had also discovered the scourge of the corpse general ants. They began to gather together and formed a large flock of corpse general birds. When they flew over, they covered the sky and covered the earth. It was like a huge dark cloud. When this dark cloud flew over, the forest below would be plunged into darkness. Their momentum was great, and their aura was high. They kept on chirping. Their chirping was hoarse and unpleasant. Hiss, 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 rustle, rustle, hiss, meow, hiss. Wherever they passed, the corpse general beasts in the forest below all hid in their caves. At this time, Immortal looked at the corpse general birds flying over and smiled calmly. Soon, when the dark cloud covered the top of his head, Immortal's dragon telekinesis moved. All the tens of thousands of corpse general birds seemed to have suddenly lost their strength as they fell from the sky while shrieking. Tens of thousands of corpse general birds that were hundreds of meters long fell from the sky. It was a spectacular scene. In the forest below, the sound of trees breaking could be heard. Plop, plop, plop. In the lake below, huge waves that were hundreds of meters high kept splashing. The corpse general fish in the lake were so shocked that they kept on jumping around. Soon, the forest within a radius of tens of kilometers was smashed into a mess by the tens of thousands of corpse general birds that fell from the sky. Only then did Immortal issue an order to the corpse ant queen. "Let's go!" The corpse ant queen raised its huge head, and the sickles in its mouth continuously struck each other. At the same time, a strange sound came out of his mouth. When the corpse general ants heard the voice and the command, they were so excited that their eyes lit up. The meaning of this command was, dry rice, they squeaked in response, and then quickly rushed toward the corpse birds. Tens of thousands of corpse general ants instantly crawled all over the body of a corpse general bird. After a series of miserable shrieks, the corpse-holding bird fell silent. 5 minutes later, when he looked at the corpse bird again, not even its bones were left. More than 100,000 corpse general ants devoured 10 corpse general birds in just 5 minutes. The corpse ant queen was even more terrifying. Its eating speed was simply too fast. Immortal really couldn't figure it out. Its small mouth and pair of sides made it seem very inconvenient for it to eat. However, it was able to kill 5 corpse birds in just 1 minute. This speed of eating was truly a little abnormal. The corpse general birds looked at the torrent of corpse general ants rushing toward them. They climbed up their bodies. However, they couldn't move at all. They could only let out despairing and miserable shrieks. However, some beasts just screamed and died. When the nearby corpse general beasts heard the shrieks, they were so scared that they hid in their caves, not daring to show their faces. When they saw the flock of corpse general birds flying across the sky, they were scared out of their wits. They didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, these seemingly powerful corpse general birds would become meat in their stomachs. This showed how terrifying the corpse general ants were. Just like that, 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 10 days, Immortal didn't let the ant queen produce any more flying soldiers. The number of corpse general ants was still too low. He let the ant queen produce 10,000 corpse general ants every day and quickly expand their numbers. This was the most important thing to do now. 10 days later, the number of corpse general ants had reached a terrifying 200,000. The 200,000 corpse general ants' eating speed was twice as fast as before. After another 5 days, they finished eating all the corpse general birds. Next, they began to sweep the entire mountain. It took them another 10 days to clean up the entire mountain. At this time, the number of ordinary corpse general ants had reached 300,000. There were also 5,000 flying corpse general ants. Immortal looked at this number and felt slightly satisfied. The only thing that made him feel a little regretful was that the killing speed of the corpse general ants was still too slow. He needed to reach the size of 10 million in order to increase the killing speed. Only then would he be able to gain kill points faster. Therefore, the corpse general ant queen had a long way to go. Thinking about it, the previous corpse general ant colony had only reached 10 million after tens of thousands of years. In less than 2 months, the number of corpse general ant queens had reached 300,000. In fact, this speed of development was already fast enough. At this time, Immortal led the army of 300,000 corpse general ants forward in the forest. Everywhere they passed, the corpse general beasts were unable to escape from his demonic claws. However, Immortal felt a little regretful that the number of corpse general beasts in the forest was not large enough. At most, there were a few dozen to 100. It was rare to see 1,000 corpse general beasts, let alone tens of thousands. Thinking about it, these corpse general beasts were all over 100 meters tall. Their appetite was even more shocking. If their numbers were too large, they would probably all starve to death. Immortal could only temporarily decide on a direction, southwest. There was a small town there. He estimated that there were about 10,000 corpse general beasts in this small town. Actually, these corpse general beasts were innocent. The ones who had truly invaded the flame-beginning continent and turned it into hell were the corpse general beasts. Therefore, Immortal's true target for revenge should be these corpse general beasts. After 10 days, when they were about to reach the small town called Sagwa, the number of corpse general ants had reached 400,000. On this day, they finally walked out of the forest. They were only 50 kilometers away from the small town. Immortal estimated in his mind. 400,000 corpse general ants should be enough to deal with 10,000 corpse general beasts. Therefore, with a thought, he put these corpse general ants into Earth's space. At the same time, in the small town of Sagwa, a patrolling soldier came to report to the mayor. Not good, a large number of corpse general beasts are heading towards Sagwa. The mayor was puzzled. Although there were not many corpse general beasts in Sagwa, the defense outside was extremely strong. Ordinary corpse general beasts did not dare to approach. This was also why Sagwa, with only 10,000 corpse general beasts, could stand at the edge of the forest for tens of thousands of years. Why would corpse general beasts suddenly come? They couldn't be that stupid, right? Chapter 5:34. Sagwa town was located 50 kilometers south of the forest by a small river. There were only 10,000 general corpse generals in the town. Of course, it was still much bigger than those general corpse tribes. Moreover, because the general corpse generals were larger in size, the town was also very big. If a human came here, they would probably think that it was a big city. Sagwa town's defense was extremely strong. With their defense, super-evolved general corpse beasts below the 5th rank would not be able to break through. In the entire forest, super-evolved general corpse beasts above the 5th rank were extremely rare. Moreover, those general corpse beasts were in the depths of the forest and occupied the best resources. They would not leave the forest. Only those weaker general corpse beasts would be pushed to the outskirts of the forest. They would not even go out of the forest to look for food. That was why Sagwa town was able to stand at the edge of the forest for over 10,000 years. At this moment, the mayor heard the report from the patrol and asked, "Can you find out what kind of general corpse beasts are coming?" The patrol shook his head and said, "It's too far, I can't see clearly. But I can see that there are a lot of them, maybe more than 10,000. Because each general corpse ant was not big, only the size of a house cat. But ordinary general corpse beasts were around 100 meters tall. Therefore, when the patrolling soldier looked from afar, he estimated that the 300,000 corpse commander ants were only 10,000 based on the dust raised by the corpse commander beasts. When the mayor heard that it was only 10,000 general corpse beasts, his expression relaxed. He waved his hand and said to the patrol, "Investigate more. See what kind of general corpse beasts it is, so that we can find the most suitable way to deal with them." Then, the mayor went to the window and looked at the towering mountain in the distance. He said, "There are many general corpse beasts in this forest. But they usually move alone. It is very rare to see a group of over 1,000. I have only seen 3 groups of over 10,000 in my life. What I can be sure of is that the larger the number, the weaker their individual combat strength. It can be seen how weak the individual combat strength of 10,000 general corpse beasts is. The method to deal with such a group of general corpse beasts is very simple. We need to show off their weaknesses and avoid their strengths. We just need to divide them into several large areas. Divide them into a dozen or even dozens of small groups, and you can easily defeat them one by one." The attendant nodded his head. "Lord Mayor is wise." The mayor continued, "Go and prepare." The lackey nodded. "Yes, Mayor." Very quickly, the 10,000 general corpses in Sagwa town entered a busy state. They quickly pushed out thousands of huge metal frames that were more than 5 meters tall. These metal racks were about 50 meters wide and 500 meters tall. It was large at the bottom and small at the top. Its 2 sides were wrapped tightly in metal, and there were many large metal spikes on it. The shelves were filled with heavy stones. At the top, there was a metal plate that looked like a passageway. When these shelves were connected together, they formed a solid and thick wall. The general corpse could still walk on top of the roof. Under the mayor's command, the corpse generals connected the racks into several pocket formations. In this way, they could use these pocket formations to separate the corpse beasts. The general corpse beasts would be able to surround and attack the general corpse beasts from the top of the high wall. The mayor stood on the top of the high wall and issued a pre-war mobilization. Last time, the higher-ups selected soldiers to attack that flaming initial continent. Aren't you regretful that you weren't selected? Now, there is an opportunity in front of you. This time, when the general corpse beasts attack, if any of you perform outstandingly in battle and kill the top 10 enemies, I can recommend you to become a soldier. When the general corpse generals heard this, their eyes lit up. They were pleasantly surprised. Roar, roar, roar. They roared in unison. None of them wanted to stay in this place for the rest of their lives. They were youths with dreams and ambitions. But without a special opportunity, they could only stay in Sagwa Town for the rest of their lives. This was the law of the general corpse world. But if they became soldiers, they would have the chance to go to other places. They would have the chance to make a name for themselves. They might even have the chance to invade that weak flaming initial continent. As long as they could go to the flaming initial continent, it would be a chance for any general corpse to make a name for themselves. At the same time, it would be a great opportunity to make a fortune. The mayor raised his hand and continued to speak passionately. He said, "Therefore, all of you brave potential warriors, all of you, fight with all your might. Chase after your life's dream and win a beautiful tomorrow for all of you." One had to admit that the mayor was an expert at cooking chicken soup. When the general corpse generals heard this, they all raised their fists and roared at the sky. Roar, 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 roar. However, while dreams were beautiful, reality was not necessarily as the general corpse generals wanted. Just as they got into formation and were in high spirits, the corpse general beast in the distance suddenly stopped moving. After waiting for about 20 minutes, there was still no sign of the general corpse beasts. The mayor called the patrolling soldier over and asked, "Did you find any traces of the general corpse beasts?" The patrolling soldier smiled bitterly and said, "That group of general corpse beasts suddenly disappeared." The mayor narrowed his eyes and turned to look at the patrolling soldier. "Disappeared? What do you mean?" The patrolling soldier replied, They disappeared." The mayor's eyes narrowed into slits. "I'm not asking what you mean." Hearing this, the patrolling soldier trembled slightly. The narrower the mayor's eyes were, the angrier he was. And when the mayor was extremely angry, he would swear. He continued to explain, "That is, there was a large amount of smoke and dust that they kicked up earlier. From the observation mirror, I could see countless black general corpse beasts at the front. They seemed to be general ants. But suddenly, the general corpse beasts disappeared. It was as if something had suddenly taken them away." Hearing this, the mayor's squinted eyes opened slightly. He looked at the distant horizon, at the faintly discernible smoke and dust that was about to disappear. His expression became much more serious. He had been the mayor of Sagwa Town for over 200 years. During this time, he had encountered at least 80, if not 100, attacks from general corpse beasts. But he had never encountered such a strange situation. As far as he knew, there were no general corpse beasts that were capable of invisibility or spatial skills. If what the patrolling soldier said was true, then there must be some unknown secret behind this. At this moment, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He abruptly raised his head and looked at the sky. In the sky, there was a human with wings condensed from energy on his back. He was quietly floating there. Chapter 5:35. When the mayor looked up, he saw a human with a pair of wings condensed from blood-red energy in the sky. This human was dressed in black and was quietly observing them from the sky. The mayor immediately felt a chill run down his spine, and his hair stood on end. His sparse beard was no longer fluttering in the wind. Instead, it was standing up. A chill ran down his spine from the soles of his feet. It traveled along his legs to his torso, and finally to his brain. It made him feel so cold from the bottom to the top. He could not help but tremble slightly. Imagine if you were doing your own thing and suddenly felt that something was wrong. When you looked up, you would find someone quietly floating in the sky, watching you. And it seemed that he had been floating there for a long time. Are you scared? The other general corpse generals followed the mayor's gaze and looked up at the sky. With one look, they also felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Especially when the guy in the sky was a human. This caused them to be even more terrified. How could there be a human in their general corpse world? This did not make sense at all. It was like one day, when you looked up, you suddenly found an ant quietly floating in the sky with a cold face, quietly watching you. Are you scared? But in addition to the fear, they were also a little angry. In their eyes, humans were weak and could not withstand a single blow. And now, this mere human had suddenly appeared here, giving them a fright. Moreover, he was looking at them with a look of contempt. How could they not be angry? The mayor's eyes were already narrowed in anger. He shouted, "Kill this human, and you can become a warrior." For a human to suddenly appear in the general corpse world, this matter must be very strange. If they could capture or kill this human, they would definitely be rewarded greatly. Then, becoming a warrior would no longer be an extravagant hope. As for why the general corpse generals of the tribes did not have such awareness, this was because the general corpse generals of the tribes were like the natives living in the Amazon jungle on Earth. They were completely separated from the general corpse generals of these towns, which was equivalent to two completely different general corpse generals. At this moment, the general corpse generals were instantly provoked by the mayor's words. They slowly let out beast-like roars. Black veins bulged on their right arms. A cracking sound came from his right arm. Then, the bones in their right arms began to grow rapidly. Sharp bone spikes grew out of it. The bone spikes pierced through the skin of their right hands and grew rapidly. In the end, it grew into a spear. These general corpses were basically 200 to 300 meters tall. The spears they condensed were more than 10 meters thick and more than 500 meters long. Following this, the tens of thousands of general corpses all threw their 500-meter-long spears at Immortal. However, when their spears were less than 100 meters away from Immortal, a strange scene occurred. Their spears suddenly stopped in midair, as if they were blocked by an invisible hand. Then they fell to the ground one after another. All the corpse generals were shocked. How could this human be so strong? What they had learned since they were young was that humans were weak, very weak. They could stomp him to death with a single stomp. However, the human in front of them was stronger than they had imagined. He had blocked the bone spears of over 10,000 general corpses by himself. This was truly too shocking for him. Then he roared at all the general corpses, "Attack with all your might." What he meant by attacking with all their might was that all the general corpses should use their ultimate moves right away. They should not hold back at all. Of course, the general corpses' ultimate moves would take a bit longer. Therefore, 5,000 general corpses planned to use their ultimate moves. The remaining 5,000 general corpses were ready to defend themselves. They could not allow these general corpses' ultimate moves to be interrupted. However, at this moment, the human in the sky who had been in a state of stillness all this time suddenly moved. However, this movement was not big. He only waved his right hand slightly. In the next moment, a large black mass of things suddenly appeared in the sky. When these things appeared, they almost instantly covered the entire Sagwa town. The town instantly became somewhat dark. In the next moment, these 300,000 general corpses descended from the sky. This unforeseen event came too suddenly, and the general corpses were completely unprepared. The 300,000 general corpses descended from the sky and quickly began to devour any living thing they could see. They devoured the general corpses raised by the general corpses. In less than 10 seconds, those general corpses slowly became skeletons. After a while, not even the skeletons were left. A few general corpses descended from the sky and landed on a general corpses. In almost an instant, the general corpse's head was bitten and bloody wounds appeared. He kept screaming, trying to kill these general corpses. However, these general corpses had extremely tenacious vitality. It looked like they had been slapped flat, but when the corpse commander ants removed their hands, these corpse commander ants were like inflated balloons as they quickly swelled up. At the same time, hundreds of general corpses landed on this general corpses. They kept biting and tearing at his body. Horrifying wounds that were so deep that bones could be seen quickly appeared on his body. In less than a minute, this general corpses was gnawed until only bones were left. His horrified screams also disappeared. At the same time, a similar scene was happening in every corner of Sagwa town. The entire Sagwa town reeked of blood. If one looked down from the sky, this place no longer looked like a peaceful town. Instead, it looked like a slaughterhouse in hell. How could 10,000 general corpses withstand the attack of 300,000 general corpses? Moreover, these general corpses were organized and disciplined. This was even more incredible. A rain of general corpses fell from the sky. A dark red mist of blood floated up from Sagwa town. Immortal watched as his kill points continued to increase. His face was expressionless. These general corpses' dream was to become warriors and invade the flaming continent. Then they would not have to blame themselves for their deaths. Immortal would not have the slightest bit of pity for them. At the same time, the smell of blood had already drifted to the forest in the distance. In the forest, the thousands of general corpses all roared excitedly when they smelled the smell of blood. Immortal was a little surprised when he heard the roars. However, he quickly came back to his senses. If the smell of blood could attract more general corpses after killing these general corpses, it would be killing two birds with one stone. As expected, when the last general corpses were killed, a group of general corpses had already kicked up a cloud of dust in the distant sky. Chapter 5:36. Actually, using 300,000 corpse general ants to attack 10,000 corpse general ants was a risky move. After all, the corpse general ants were not as brainless as the corpse general beasts. Moreover, the corpse general ants had many skills and their ultimate moves as a foundation. However, Immortal was in charge of the overall situation. Wherever the corpse general ants could not handle, he would lend a helping hand. This allowed the 300,000 corpse general ants to easily take care of 10,000 corpse general ants. At this moment, a cloud of dust rose from the ground in the distance. Immortal's draconic perception enveloped the area and discovered that thousands of corpse general beasts were charging towards them. Moreover, these corpse general beasts were not of low levels. They were basically super-evolved corpse general beasts. Immortal probed for a moment and discovered that the number of these corpse beast commanders reached a total of 50,000. They must have been attracted by the smell of the corpse general beast's blood. After all, the corpse general ants love to eat corpse general beasts. However, the defenses here were too strong and they could not break in. Now that they smelled such a strong smell of blood, they knew that something must have happened to the corpse general beasts in Sagwa town. Immortal looked at the corpse general beasts rolling towards him like a flood. Not only did he not panic, but he was also delighted. Slaughtering a corpse general town had attracted 50,000 corpse general beasts. This was a pleasant surprise. Soon, the corpse general beasts arrived outside the town. However, there was a pocket formation set up outside the town. These corpse general beasts were naturally divided into hundreds of small groups. Each group only had about 500 corpse general beasts. Immortal moved the metal racks with his mind and sealed all the pockets in the pocket formation. Then he threw 300,000 corpse general ants into one of the pockets. How could 500 corpse general beasts withstand the bites of 300,000 corpse general ants? In a short 5 minutes, they were completely devoured by the 300,000 corpse general ants. Then, the corpse general ants crawled to the next pocket. As for the corpse general ant queen, Immortal specially left an empty pocket for her. The corpse general ants would naturally cut the dead corpse general beasts into small pieces and send them to the corpse general ant queen. As the corpse general ants ate, they also laid eggs. When the sky turned dark, the 50,000 corpse general beasts had all been cleared out. The entire Sagwa town had long been enveloped in the thick smell of blood. The corpse ants ate until their stomachs were bloated. On that day, the corpse general ant queen gave birth to another 1,000 flying corpse general ants. Now that the number of corpse general ants had begun to take shape, it wouldn't be a problem to slaughter these small towns. What Immortal needed now were aerial troops. At this moment, he looked at the kill points in his mind. This time, the massacre of Sagwa town had earned him more than 6 trillion kill points. It was really worth it. Of course, it was still much less than the 10,000 trillion required to level up. But it didn't matter, there were countless small towns in the general corpse world. As long as he slaughtered a few more towns, he would be able to level up again very quickly. After that, Immortal kept the corpse commander ants into Earth's space. His figure flashed and he disappeared. The next moment, he appeared above another small town more than 800 kilometers away. There were more than 10,000 general corpses in this town. Night had just fallen. The corpse generals of this small town had just returned from their work in the fields and were currently sitting around a bonfire. They sang, danced, rapped, and played a ball game. But it was definitely not a basketball game. This place was already far away from the forest, so it was basically impossible for a large number of corpse general beasts to come here. So there weren't even any patrolling soldiers in the town. Everyone was very relaxed. Immortal moved his mind and more than 300,000 corpse general ants were thrown down from the sky. A moment later, screams, shouts, cries, and curses were heard. An hour later, these sounds gradually disappeared. Immortal's kill points had increased by more than 1 trillion. Immortal teleported again and arrived at another small town hundreds of kilometers away. At this moment, many of the corpse general ants in this small town had already fallen asleep. Immortal still threw down the corpse general ants. An hour later, he gained another 1 trillion kill points. Just like this, Immortal continued to slaughter these small towns day after day. His kill points kept increasing. At the same time, the number of corpse general ants kept increasing. Gradually, the total number of corpse general ants reached over 500,000. Among them, the number of flying corpse general ants had also reached 50,000. And Immortal's kill points had also reached 5,000 trillion. As long as he continued for a while, he would be able to level up again. At the same time, in Naten Prefecture's capital city, Naten City. These were the hundreds of small towns within 100,000 kilometers of Naten Prefecture. As for Naten City, it was the largest city within a radius of 100,000 kilometers. The number of corpse general ants living here was close to 1 million. But because the distance between the small towns was too far, and the technology of the corpse general ants was not that advanced, communication was inconvenient. So it wasn't until today that the master of Naten City received the news that several towns had been massacred. At this moment, the princess frowned slightly. She said to a strategist beside her, "What do you think about the massacring of many small towns?" That strategist replied, "It must be a group of people with average strength and numbers." Why? The princess's right finger kept drawing on her eyebrows as she asked. That strategist said, "Because they only dared to attack those remote towns. They didn't dare to get too close to our Naten City. I think it's very likely that they were fugitives who had escaped into the forest in the past. As time passed, their numbers increased. So they started to come out and rob these small towns." The princess pondered for a moment and nodded, Your guess is correct." Then she called in a warrior. She said, "I'll give you 50,000 men. You have 1 month to find out the whereabouts of those bandits and eliminate them in one fell swoop." Hearing this, the warrior was instantly overjoyed. This meant that the princess was promoting him. Although those bandits were fugitives, they were also a motley crew. In front of these trained warriors, they were completely vulnerable. Moreover, the princess had given him 50,000 warriors. This was a perfect opportunity for him to earn credit for himself. As long as he seized this opportunity, his promotion was basically set in stone. Thinking of this, he quickly bowed to the princess. "Thank you, princess." So, early the next morning, this warrior led 50,000 warriors and rode on a corpse general ant that was more than 400 meters long toward the border of Naten Prefecture. Finally, after 3 days, they had already investigated a few small towns. Based on the tracks of these towns' destruction, they had a rough idea of Immortal's route. Thus, they predicted that the next town that those bandits would destroy was Weiler Town. They had set up an ambush in Weiler Town in advance, waiting for the bandits to arrive. Chapter 537. That afternoon, the sky in the west was crimson. The rare sunset glow dyed the entire Villor town crimson. The general corpses in the town all had smiles on their faces that had not appeared for a long time. These days they had heard rumors. They said that a group of bandits kept slaughtering the nearby towns. Everywhere they passed, there was not a town that was not slaughtered. Moreover, this group of bandits came and went without a trace. Therefore, it had already caused a certain amount of panic. Fortunately, the princess had sent people today. And it was 50,000 soldiers. These 50,000 soldiers were already lying in ambush around the town. This made the townspeople feel much more at ease. If those bandits dared to attack Villor town, they would definitely not be able to return. Therefore, the townspeople of Villor town, who had been nervous for so many days, could finally relax today. At this moment, the soldier hidden in the dark, Babu, looked at the setting sun on the horizon. He had already waited for a day. According to the time, that group of bandits should have appeared. He could not help but grip the long sword at his waist tightly. This was the best opportunity to make a name for himself. At the same time, Immortal quietly appeared in the sky. He scanned with his dragon will and detected the appearance of the 50,000 soldiers. The corner of his mouth could not help but curl into a smile. Just as he was complaining that this way of earning kill points was not fast enough, they sent 50,000 kill points over. It was really timely help. Then, with a move of his dragon will, he instantly controlled the 50,000 soldiers. These general corpses' self-healing abilities were extremely strong. Although his dragon will could not kill them, he could control them. Then, he threw the 500,000 general corpse ants to the ground. A general corpse had just picked up a skewer of barbecued meat and was about to eat it. Suddenly, something fell on this piece of barbecued meat. Then, it quickly climbed onto his hand. Then, a piercing pain came from his finger. Ah! He screamed and hurriedly raised his left hand to slap that thing. But in the next moment, a piercing pain came from his left hand. Then his neck, ears, arms, and nose were covered with general corpse ants. A piercing pain came from everywhere. At the same time, the general corpses around him also screamed. When they raised their heads, they saw a dense rain of general corpse ants falling from the sky. Faced with the sudden appearance of tens of thousands of corpse general ants, they simply had no way to deal with them. They wanted to escape the town. However, they discovered that there seemed to be an invisible wall around the town, blocking them inside. No matter how much strength they used, they were unable to break through the wall. Finally, with a miserable shriek, one of the corpse generals fell to the ground. A moment later, only a skeleton was left. More than 10 seconds later, even the bones had disappeared. Then the second, the third, the fourth, countless corpse commander ants fell from the sky. The commander corpses fell to the ground one by one, and were devoured clean one after another. When the soldiers hiding in the dark saw this scene, they were all terrified. Previously, they had thought that they were facing a motley crew. They never expected that they would be facing hundreds of thousands of corpse general ants. If that was the case, they could still fight and think of a way to escape. However, the most terrifying thing was that they were unable to move at all. They could only watch as the corpse commander ants devoured the townspeople. Moreover, it was obvious that they had been discovered. Then they were bound by some kind of enemy skill. Otherwise, they would not be unable to move at all. In other words, after the corpse general ants devoured the townspeople, their next target would be the 50,000 corpse commander warriors. In fact, they were right. After the corpse general ants devoured the townspeople, they leaped into the forest and began to devour the corpse commander warriors who could not move at all. In the sky, Missouri sure watched all of this with indifference, without the slightest bit of pity in his heart. 2 hours later, all of the townspeople had been devoured. Immortal led the 500,000 corpse general ants to the next location. A day later, in Natan City, the princess looked at the sky in the west and asked the servant beside her, "Is there still no news from Babu?" Previously, he had instructed Babu to send a bird message 3 times a day to report back to him. However, an entire day had passed, and there was not even a single bird message. The servant nodded. Yes. The princess frowned slightly and said, There must be a problem. Send a small team to investigate and have them report back as soon as possible. The servant hurriedly nodded. Yes, Princess. In the following days, Immortal continued to massacre the townspeople. The people the princess sent out to investigate returned with more and more information that made the princess more and more alarmed. All of the townspeople of Will Town have disappeared, and there is no trace of Babu. All of the townspeople of Skoda Town have disappeared, and there is no trace of Babu. All of the townspeople of Naris Town have disappeared, and there is no trace of Babu. Of course, the letter said disappeared and not died. However, the tracking team sent by the princess showed that these people were definitely dead. This was because the ground of all the towns where the townspeople had disappeared was dyed dark red with blood. Other than the lack of corpses, everything else showed that there had been a massacre here. This made the princess more and more alarmed. The most frightening thing was that based on the location of the massacred towns, the bandits were heading towards Naten City. Although there were still 50,000 soldiers and 400,000 general corpses in the city. But with the strength of these bandits, Naten City would not be able to withstand them. By now, he already knew that these fellows were not simple thieves. As for what they were, he could not say for sure. He could only do his best to set up defenses in the city. Fortunately, there was still the corpse ancestor in the city, which made him feel slightly more at ease. The corpse ancestor was an existence that was stronger than the super-evolved general corpses. No matter how strong the enemies were, they could not be stronger than the corpse ancestor. Therefore, other than restricting the general corpses in the city from going out, he did not need to do anything. He just needed to wait for those guys to arrive. On this day, the number of general corpses under Immortal's command had reached 900,000. The kill points in his mind had reached 9,960 trillion. He was only 40 trillion away from leveling up again. He looked straight ahead at the majestic city wall on the horizon. That was Naten City, the main city of the entire Naten City. At that time, there were 400,000 general corpses. It was just enough to reach 10,000 trillion kill points. This made Immortal slightly excited. However, he was still slightly worried about one thing. According to the current situation, after reaching the 7th level, if he wanted to level up again, he would need to kill 1 billion general corpses or general corpses. Based on the current situation of the continent of general corpses, although there were many general corpses in the continent of general corpses, reaching trillions. However, they lived very far apart. The city with the largest number of general corpses only had about 10 million. There were only 4 such cities in the world. It would be difficult to kill 1 billion. As expected, the kill points system was going to collapse. Chapter 5:38. There were more than 400,000 general corpses in Rutten City. After slaughtering all of them, he would be able to collect the 10,000 trillion kill points needed for his advancement. Immortal didn't care whether the system's kill points system would break down or not. He would think about it after he advanced to rank 7. Thinking of this, his figure flashed and he appeared above Rutten City. At this time, in the princess residence in Rutten City. The princess and a group of strategists were in the meeting hall. The princess didn't look good, and the strategists didn't dare to look good either. The princess first coughed a few times and coughed out a mouthful of phlegm in her throat. Then she said in a low voice, "Those bandits still haven't been caught. Not only have we not caught them, we haven't even seen them. We only know that wherever they go, they will massacre the entire city." She could be so vicious and merciless, and she could also appear and disappear like a ghost. "Tell me, all of you who are experienced and knowledgeable." The strategist thought for a moment and said, "Princess, I heard that there are mountain elves in the forest. Could it be the mountain elves causing trouble?" As soon as this was said, a few of the strategist's expressions changed slightly. Mountain elves were legendary evil creatures in the world of general corpses. In layman's terms, they were evil spirits in the mountains. They had once caused a riot in the world of general corpses. It was a riot of a very large scale. It lasted for more than 20 years. More than 300 million people participated in the rebellion. After the corpse king quelled the riot, he ordered several generals to lead millions of soldiers and escort the tens of millions of surrendered general corpses into the 10,000 Poisons Ridge in the forest. It was said that after the generals outside the 10,000 Poisons Ridge drove the general corpses in, they heard screams in the 10,000 Poisons Ridge for 7 days and 7 nights. The generals and soldiers felt their scalps go numb. They didn't sleep for 7 days and 7 nights. After 7 days and 7 nights, the 10,000 Poisons Ridge suddenly fell into a dead silence. There was no more sound. The general corpses waited for 2 more days. Seeing that no rebels escaped, they left the 10,000 Poisons Ridge. But after they returned, all the generals died within 7 days. All of the more than 1 million soldiers died within 7 days. Not only them, but even their families and friends who came into contact with them during these 7 days, including the king at the time, all died. Even 3 of the new kings had died in a row. Whoever becomes king dies. In the past, it was the brothers and fathers who fought to be the king. In order to become the king, they didn't hesitate to kill their father and brothers. But at that time, none of the king's sons wanted to be king. For the sake of the king, they did not hesitate to run away from home. They even dressed up as beggars and escaped from the city. At that time, the entire general corpse kingdom was in a state of panic. Later on, he heard from a necromancer that the 10 million corpses that had died in the myriad Poisons Ridge had transformed into mountain elves to cause trouble. After more than 20 days, no more people died suddenly. But even so, no one was willing to be king. The current king was only a 5-year-old child at that time. In his confusion, he was helped up to the throne by a group of officials. Of course, this was something that happened nearly 1,000 years ago. It was said that after the king came of age, he destroyed all the history books about this incident. Nowadays, people only pass down such stories through word of mouth. As for whether the story was true or not, only the king would know. The princess frowned. If it really was a mandrill, then they would be in big trouble. Of course, there were also strategists who objected. No one knows whether the mandrill story is true or not. And according to my years of research, it's a superstition. Because there's no evidence to prove what happened back then. A strategist shook his head. It's better to believe it than not. As the saying goes, there's no smoke without fire. Even if what happened back then wasn't as horrifying and tragic as the legends say, it must have happened. Some strategists believed that this matter was true, while others thought that it was false. The two sides quarreled. In the end, the princess spoke. Regardless of whether this is true or not, the destruction of so many towns has already exceeded the scope of our abilities. We must report to the governor as soon as possible. Immediately send out a messenger to report this matter to the prefecture city. Yes, I'll do it right away, one of the strategists said and quickly retreated. However, just as he walked out of the meeting hall, suddenly, something landed on his shoulder. He turned his head and saw that it was a corpse general ant that was not even the size of his finger. He did not care at all. In the Flaming Dawn continent, corpse general ants were very common. They were just like ants on Earth. However, there were not many corpse general ants, and they did not cause much harm. Therefore, he did not care at all. The strategist was about to stretch out his finger and crush the corpse general ant to death. But at this moment, the corpse general ant suddenly jumped up and bit the back of the strategist's hand. Immediately, a bloody wound that was so deep that bone could be seen appeared on the back of the strategist's hand. Looking at the ghastly white bone in the wound, the strategist was shocked. But before he could react, a second, a third, a 10th, hundreds of corpse general ants landed on his head. Hiss, hiss, hiss. A single bite from each corpse commander ant would leave behind hundreds of bloody wounds. Ah, the strategist let out a scream. He wanted to run and call for help. But soon, he was horrified to find that he could not move. Not to mention his feet, he could not even move his fingers, or even his eyes. Soon, in just 10 seconds, half of him was bitten. In the meeting hall, the strategists heard the scream and rushed out one by one. At this moment, the scene they saw made them all suck in a breath of cold air. The strategist who had just walked out was still standing, but the upper half of his body had been bitten into bones. The lower half of his body was still being bitten. It was not just the strategist. In the sky, countless black corpse general ants were like black rain, rapidly falling down. After landing, they quickly surrounded the corpse general ants. Those corpse general ants were also bitten into bones. Even the bones had been gnawed clean. At this moment, the strategists and the princess finally understood. These were not mandrill, but corpse general ants. Corpse general ants fell from the sky. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of corpse general ants. Resist! Resist! The princess gave a powerless order. But at this moment, all the corpse general ants could not even take care of themselves. How could they resist? Amidst her terror, the princess would occasionally raise her head to take a look. She would suddenly feel extremely terrified. This was because he seemed to have seen a figure in the gaps between the densely packed corpse general ants that were falling down. That figure was not a corpse general. It was a human. No, how was this possible? Although there were some humans in the corpse general world who were kept in captivity for corpse general research, there were definitely no free humans. Chapter 539. It was not just the commandery princess. When the other corpse generals saw the human figure in the sky, an inexplicable panic rose in their hearts. How could a human who was supposed to be kept in captivity suddenly appear here? Moreover, this human had condensed energy wings behind his back and was floating in the sky. In the knowledge of these corpse generals, it seemed that only the corpse ancestor could float in the sky. Could it be that this human had strength comparable to the corpse ancestor? With this thought, all the corpse generals felt an inexplicable panic. They wanted to hide, they wanted to fight back. But they found that their bodies could not move at all. This made them even more terrified. Fortunately, the commandery princess found that she could occasionally open her mouth. Because the number of corpse generals was too large, reaching 400,000, and their strength was not low. They had reached the level of super-evolved corpse generals. Therefore, Immersive's dragons could not keep all the corpse generals motionless at all times. The commandery princess found that she could still open her mouth and shout. She seemed to be grasping at the last life-saving straw. She opened her mouth and let out a heart-wrenching cry like a pig being slaughtered. Quickly go and invite the corpse ancestor of the western heaven. This voice, accompanied by the transmission of energy, spread to a radius of hundreds of kilometers. Just as this voice fell, a figure suddenly appeared in the air 500 meters in front of Immortal without warning. This figure was not the size of a corpse general. It was the size of an ordinary human. It seemed that many creatures eventually developed a human form. After all, if the body was too big, it was inconvenient to do many things. This corpse general ancestor's head was completely bald. There was not a single hair on his head. His scalp was wrinkled. His face was wrinkled. His arms and bare feet were all wrinkled. In short, there was not a single part of his body that was not wrinkled. If someone with OCD saw this, they would probably want to flatten him with an electric iron. His gaze only swept across the miserable situation below. The next moment, his body began to change. With a series of muffled cracking sounds, the skin on his chest and back began to harden quickly. In the end, it became as hard as a rock. 2 bone blades grew out of his arms. These 2 bones extended from the outside of his arms with a certain curve. They were about 2 feet long. It was both offensive and defensive. Furthermore, those corpse ancestors had all changed their fighting style. It was no longer a long-distance energy competition. He no longer released any big moves. Instead, it leaned more towards close-range combat. However, this kind of close-range combat was fatal. It was far more dangerous than long-range combat. In a long-distance battle, the opponent's energy attacks were basically all AoE attacks. It looked very powerful, but the attack was scattered. If your body was tough enough, you might even be able to withstand it with your body. But in close combat, no matter how hard your body was, you would be killed almost instantly. When Wang Yi saw that corpse ancestor had come forward without saying a word, he was about to attack. It seemed like he was also a ruthless person. Immortal did not use the dragon salure again. The body of the dragon salure was relatively large, and it was more suitable for long-range attacks. With a thought, he took out a saber. The blade was 2 feet long. Its entire body was blood red. It was so red that it seemed like it could drip blood. From the tip of the blade to the hilt, it formed a small S-shaped streamline. The tip of the blade was extremely sharp. There was an S-shaped hollow line on the blade, which extended from the tip of the blade all the way to the hilt. On the back of the blade, there were more than 10 serrations. On the whole, it looked very scientific and mysterious. This was the profound Bing demon-slaying blade that Immortal had not used for a long time. The profound Bing demon-slaying blade and bloodthirsty corpse-slaying blade had some similar functions. They could both absorb the blood of infected creatures and transform it into a strong acid. However, there was an additional ice seal function. When it hit anything, it could instantly release a large amount of cold air. It would cause an ice seal effect. Even if it encountered a powerful creature, it could not be directly frozen, but it could also cause a slowing effect. This way, it would corrode from the inside and freeze from the outside. It made it impossible for the enemy to guard against it. Most importantly, the general corpse's self-healing ability was extremely strong, but if it was cut by the profound Bing demon-slaying blade, it would definitely be very interesting. Moreover, this profound Bing demon-slaying blade had a growth attribute. It would absorb Immortal's evolution points and slowly grow. Immortal had not used it for a long time. It absorbed 100 evolution points every day to grow. The current profound Bing demon-slaying blade had already grown to an unknown extent. That corpse ancestor's figure flashed and already arrived in front of Immortal. With a thought from Immortal, Long Wei was instantly released. A trace of fear suddenly appeared in corpse ancestor's heart. Although his level was much higher than Immortal, Long Wei that Immortal had nurtured for many years would still cause a certain amount of disturbance to him. Immortal took advantage of this trace of fear in his heart and quickly slashed the profound Bing demon-slaying blade in his hand towards corpse ancestor. When corpse ancestor came back to his senses, the blood-red profound Bing demon-slaying blade was already above his head. He was alarmed and hurriedly teleported and disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already behind Immortal. However, Immortal had already predicted his position. He also teleported and disappeared without a trace. When corpse ancestor appeared, he discovered that Immortal had suddenly disappeared and could not help but be slightly stunned. Right at this moment, a blood-red blade had already pierced towards his back. Ding! A soft sound rang out. The tip of the blade pierced the hardened skin on corpse ancestor's back. However, it was unable to pierce in at all. Immortal was secretly alarmed. One must know that the profound Bing demon-slaying blade was extremely sharp and could cut through iron like mud. However, it was unable to pierce through corpse ancestor's hardened skin. This guy's defense was truly abnormal. However, it was fortunate that only the skin on his chest and back was hardened. Other than that, the rest of his skin was still normal. After corpse ancestor's body was pierced, he sneered, just as he was about to turn around and attack Immortal. However, right at this moment, kacha, the surface of his body was instantly covered with a thick layer of ice. This caused corpse ancestor's speed to slow down slightly. Immortal took this opportunity and slashed towards the back of corpse ancestor's head. Although corpse ancestor did not manage to turn around, with his many years of battle experience, he instantly raised the bone blade on his right arm. Ding! Immortal's profound Bing demon-slaying blade directly struck the bone blade. At the same time, corpse ancestor had already turned around and pierced towards Immortal's chest with his other bone blade. However, right at this moment, he was once again sealed by a thick layer of ice. One must know that the profound Bing demon-slaying blade was extremely abnormal in one aspect. No matter what it struck, it would instantly release a large amount of cold air and freeze that object. Therefore, no matter if it was corpse ancestor's body or weapon, as long as it came into contact with the profound Bing demon-slaying blade, it would instantly be sealed by a thick layer of ice. With his strength, this 1-foot layer of ice could not completely freeze him and could only slow him down a little. However, in a battle between experts, as long as the speed was slowed down, it would be extremely dangerous. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.